Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another live iThemes training webinar. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host here at iThemes Training, and today we're joined with us, joining us is our great friend Rebecca Gill, who is an expert in all things related to SEO. Rebecca's going to be talking to us today about why you ought to be an expert in 301 redirects and why it is so important for us to all understand how that works and what we need to do on our site. So welcome, Rebecca. We're glad you're with us today.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, and thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. The reason I wanted to have this as one of our topics is not because 301 redirects are difficult to implement. That is not at all the case. They're pretty easy to implement. The issue is the people, generally speaking, don't know when to use them, and therefore they don't use them. And when that happens, the SEO and the referral traffic gets derailed, and mammoth amounts of damage is done by the time people figure out what happened. And at that point, it's too late to fix it. So that's the main reason why I wanted to have this topic as one of the monthly webinars. Again, not because it's difficult to implement. It's not going to be, and you're going to see that it's pretty easy to do. It's the fact that people don't know about them or don't know how to properly use them and when to use them. And then by the time they figure out what's going on, the damage is done and you can't go repair it. Right? There's not a quick fix if you did not implement 301s at the right time or properly. So that is what we're going to primarily cover today, because I want to talk about different scenarios on when to use them and how to use them and things like that. So you really can make sure that you are protecting your SEO or protecting the SEO of your client as you work with them on redesigns and new websites and CMS moves and things like that. You will see that I was a little bit punchy when I created my slides, and they're a little bit entertaining today. I hope that you take that with humor as opposed to thinking that I'm just crazy, which I kind of am, so that's okay.
So a lot of good information coming for you today. Rebecca, we've got folks coming in from all over the world. Lots of, there quite a bit of diversity in our chat room today. So folks, we welcome you with us. A couple of questions as we're getting started here. Someone is asking about the handout, or is there a download? Yes, we will be making the slide links available to you after the webinar today. So as soon as Rebecca is finished and before we do Q&A, I'll drop that link in the chat room so you can download all the slides. So if there's something on a slide you're afraid that you'll miss, we'll have that link for you. Also, the best place to get your questions answered is in our chat room there at ithemes.com/chat. We do not use the questions feature of GoToWebinar, so if you want to get your question answered, head over to the chat room, again, ithemes.com/chat. Drop your question in there, and it's helpful to me if you'll preface your question with the word question, and I'll uppercase. That way I'm sure to grab that, and we'll give those to Rebecca as she's wrapping up today. So Rebecca, let's dive into 301 redirects.
Okay, perfect. All right, so what is a 301 redirect? A 301 redirect is a status code that tells the search engines that a page or a post or a product or a tag or a category has permanently moved to a new location. The permanently is what's important there, because you are telling them that this old URL no longer exists. It's gone, it's good, it's bye-bye. And you're asking them, the request to the search engines, to transfer any SEO history and information over to this new URL. And at the same time, you're asking them to redirect traffic over to this new URL. And if that seems at all confusing, don't worry, because I'm going to go through it and I'm going to give you some illustrations. So here's a great image. I did not create this. I gave a notification of the website that I got this from. So here is the case without a 301 redirect. You see up here that you've got your existing page or product or whatever, which is blue widgets. So if that's been removed and the search engines see it's gone, and they just see it's gone away, they're gonna pull it out of the search engine index. So it's no longer gonna show up in like Google's index. It won't be in the search results page. And if they see a new page called like new blue widgets, they're like, okay, I see a new page, and it considers it a new page, and it will say, I'm going to have some time to digest this, to figure out what it is, to see what kind of inbound links and social shares we have on it. before I decide to rank it. So it's like a brand new piece of content. So now the same situation, but with a 301 redirect in place. So instead of this blue widgets just completely going away, you do a 301 redirect and you tell the search engines where the new location for that is. So the new blue widgets. And this happens a lot with e-commerce sites where a product goes away, but there's a new product. And a lot of people will just deactivate the old product and completely forget about it, where you could really capitalize and you could bring in that traffic and that SEO value by using that 301 redirect. Because when you use that, the search engines say, oh, I see that this is just moved, or that there's a replacement. So now I'm going to take the SEO value and the traffic from blue widgets, and I'm going to move it over here to the new blue widgets, which means this guy, when he gets pulled out of this index, so pulled out of search results, he's immediately replaced with this guy, so you don't miss a beat. That's why this is so vital. And a lot of times, people don't think about 301 redirects until like 2 weeks or a month go by, and then they want to implement it, and the search engines are like, sorry, I've already pulled it out. It's dead. It's gone. It doesn't have the capability to transfer all that goodness from the old URL to the new URL. So why do we use 301 redirects? What are the benefits? Well, number one, it preserves the SEO value of that link, and it saves like 90 to 99% of what people call link juice. And if you've listened to me on webinars or on the podcast that I do, you know I hate that phrase, but it's the best way to describe this. So link juice, saying all of that incoming activity to that URL, the inbound links, the references, the social shares, the search engines are going to take that and they are going to transfer it over to that new URL. And I've tested this, right? So what I did was, I bought the domain RebeccaGill.com, and I have been trying and waiting for it, and it finally came available, and I had to pay like hundreds of dollars for it, but I said I'm gonna buy it because I wanted my name. So I bought that domain, but it was brand new. There was no history on it whatsoever. Somebody was just sitting and squatting on it. And then I had a page on my Web Savvy site for Rebecca Gill. If you search for my name, that page showed up first. But I didn't want that page to show up first. I wanted the new website, RebeccaGill.com, to show up. So I did a 301 redirect on, I think, a Sunday from that Web Savvy page to the new RebeccaGill.com. And guess what happened? By Tuesday, if you search for my name, the old page on my Web Savvy site was completely gone and removed from the index, and RebeccaGill.com, this brand new website that no one had ever used before, was showing at the top of the search engine results for Google for my name. So Google really did protect 99% of that SEO value, and it transferred it for me automatically, right? It moved everything over. But when it does that, it does a few more things. Any referral traffic coming into my old page for my name where people were linking over is protected, because that's all going to get rerouted to the new RebeccaGill.com as well. So is all the social media traffic, and anything that's been shared there will automatically get rerouted for me. Incoming links on the website, which there were a lot, they will continue to work. So, and I'm saying that, I realized I never went back and fixed the internal links on our website to point to the new domain. Just dawned on me. But so those will all continue to work, and they will flow over to where I want them to go. And another important thing, because this does, it's part of the overall algorithm, the search engines look at the health of your website or your blog, for the whole domain. And it's reasons why, software packages like SEMrush will report on 404 errors and broken links, internal and external. It's why the search engines themselves, like Google, will give you in Google Webmaster Tools a report of 404 errors it's seen. It does not like 404 errors. It does not like a bunch of broken things on your website. It wants your website to be clean. And these 301 redirects help protect your website or your blog, and it keeps it clean. It's not just for the link juice or the traffic. It's also so the search engines see that you are grooming and caring for your website or your blog, and you're keeping it at its best health possible. So it's got a number of different benefits that really, are of value. So when should you use a 301 redirect? Well, if you've moved your site to a new domain, you want to move over that traffic and that SEO history, perfect reason. You've moved from one CMS platform to another, which a lot of times will change the URL structure, like HubSpot to WordPress. That's an example. You've changed a URL and you need to maintain that existing page rank. You've changed your URL and you want to maintain the traffic and you want to reroute that traffic to the new URL. Or potentially you're merging two websites into one brand new one, and you need to redirect all of that SEO and goodness and all of that traffic. All of those are scenarios I've seen before and I've experienced. So I said PageRank, and does that still matter? And what the heck is it? So PageRank is just simply a number from 0 to 10, which is assigned by Google. It's an indication of the overall SEO value of a given piece of content. So not the whole website, but a URL like a page, a post, or a product. It's a really minor part of the Google algorithm, and it's only changed a couple of times a year. And because of that, Google's actually pulled the data from us so we can't see it. Google still uses that information, and it's still part of how they view website content and how they decide whether they're now ranking. But it's just, just consider that to be like the health of your content and the SEO goodness, the value it has. So when I say it's helping preserve your page rank, that's what I mean. But don't get tripped over about it, because you can't go find any even data on it anymore because Google's taken that away. So let's look at some examples. And I told you I was goofy when I was doing these slides. pinkpuppy.com is replaced by purplekitty.com, right? pinkpuppy.com and purplekitty.com are being merged into crazyanimals.com. HubSpot now becomes a WordPress website. Your SEO consultant finally convinced you to move your blog off of a subdomain. You've sold part of your business and you need to migrate some of that content to a new owner. You remove blog categories from your blog permalink. Or you've deleted a really old blog post that had some value and you want to preserve it. Or my favorite one, which is, and all of these are real world scenarios except for the pink puppies and things. Your SEO consultant discovered that 1,700 tags sitting within your blog is completely insane, and she's going to remove 1,650 of them. And yep, that really happened to me this month. And I really did create 301 redirects for every single blog tag that I removed. So let's look at some visual examples, because I really wanted to hit home on when you use these, because that's where people struggle. It's not the implementation, it's when they should use them. So we have pinkpuppy.com. It is going to go away, and it's going to be purplekitty.com, because for whatever reason, the crazy person decided they didn't like puppies anymore and they liked kitties. So now I need to 301 redirect all of the content within Pink Puppy over to Purple Kitty. Now, some people will say, just go into the hosting account and point pinkpuppy.com over to purplekitty.com. If there wasn't any content there, I would say, sure, go ahead. The problem with that is you're not addressing individual URLs within that Pink Puppy website. So say pinkpuppy.com had a structure that is different than what we have now in the Purple Kitty. You have to go in on a URL by URL basis, and you need to point one to the other. Now, in a lot of cases, you can speed this process up. I use DynoMapper. DynoMapper will crawl the Pink Puppy, I can't even get these out straight because they're so crazy. The Pink Puppy website, it'll give me a complete export of all of the URLs, and then I can take that data and quickly start doing mass replaces in Excel in a new column and update everything to the Purple Kitty, and I can do the outliers that may be really different, but the ones like I know that are just going to go from one domain to another, I can manage those all quickly in Excel. And then I just take care of the exceptions, right? That's the fastest way to do it. And then you take that Excel spreadsheet and you're going to either upload it into an htaccess file or into a plugin like redirection, and I'll cover those in a little bit. But the important thing is, if everything is not completely the same, you have to start investigating URL by URL and make sure that you're going to preserve that traffic and that SEO value. So now let's look at another example I said. Now we've changed our mind again. Pinkpuppy.com and purplekitty.com are really going to go away. We've decided that we don't want to focus on puppies. We don't want to focus on kitties. We want to focus on animals as a whole, and we want to talk about crazy animals. So now I've got 2 completely different domains going into crazyanimals.com. I'm still going to have to go through that same process because there's no way that we're going to have, completely line by line everything match up. I'm going to have to review everything on Pink Puppy and everything on Purple Kitty, make an inventory list of all those URLs. Again, I would use Dynamapper if it was me. And then I can create the destination links in Crazy Animals and where that content and that traffic should be pointed to. Really, really important that you're really thinking through this. And this is not when you have something of this scale, it's not a quick process. It is something that you have to think through. Now, when I say you can quickly create those, you can, but depending on the size of the site, if it's 25 pages, it's very fast to do. If it's 2,500 URLs, now that's a different story. And, again, Excel is going to be your friend because you can do mass find and replace. But you have to look for those exceptions and those outliers. And things like this really do happen. And I've seen a number of cases where people will completely whack out one domain, move to another, and never even consider the idea of a 301 redirect. And what they do is all of the SEO and the traffic dies when pinkpuppy.com goes away. This is a classic example, HubSpot to WordPress. So HubSpot, if you're HubSpot certified and on this webinar, I apologize for what I'm going to say, but it's really stinking expensive. I mean, it's really expensive. And a lot of people sign up and they don't get the value that they thought that they were going to get because they're not utilizing all of what HubSpot offers. So they want to migrate to WordPress. Now, I rank really well for those phrases, that migration search term. So I get a lot of inquiries for that. The owners of the websites that are in HubSpot think this process is super easy. They think they can dump their current design and all of their content right into WordPress. Okay, that is not the case. Those of you who are on here that are knowledgeable in WordPress know we would have to recreate that design in a WordPress theme or a template and bring that up, and then we need to migrate the content. Well, so if HubSpot allows for an export process, which they do with their premium package that they have, we could export the content, import the content into WordPress, and then we start looking at 301s to see how much of that structure has changed. Do we have content silos now that we didn't have content silos before? And by content silos, I mean parent-children relationships. Was it just posts? Were categories in the posts? Were there, funky characters in the posts? All things that you need to look at to decide how involved this migration is going to be. And the inquiries I get, I kid you not, are people saying, yeah, I'd like you to send me a quote. How much do you think it's going to cost? And they don't give me any information. And then I give them back like 15 questions, and they realize this is a much more involved process than what they think. The danger is it's funny because there's a lot of people who just they haven't budgeted for the amount of work that it really takes. So what they end up doing is they have this budget stuck in their head, so they go in a quick route, right? They're like, how can I use the fastest manner possible? And they forget all of the things like their categories that they had in the landing pages and those 301 redirects. So they lose all of the SEO value from HubSpot to WordPress. But let me tell you, if you're on this webinar and you're considering leaving HubSpot, you don't have to lose the SEO value. It can all come with you. WordPress is just as SEO friendly as HubSpot. You can bring it all over as long as you implement a 301 redirect immediately at go live of the new WordPress site. You have to have those in and ready to go live. Okay, so another example is at some point you heard it was great to have your blog on a subdomain. So your URL for your blog was blog.crazyanimals.com over here. But you've realized that that wasn't the best idea, that you get a lot more SEO value from your blog if it's a folder and not a subdomain. So you want to move that over. Now, had someone come to me 5 years ago and asked for this, I would have told them not to do it, because 5 years ago, 301 redirects were not as solid as they are today. They didn't pass all that SEO value that's passed today. And if that blog was ranking on the subdomain and it was helping the main domain, I would have said, hold on, don't do it, just stay put. There's no reason to do it. Today, I know that the folder can bring over all that SEO value. We can reroute all of that traffic, and we can preserve all of that goodness. And it's a lot better for usability and the overall SEO of the entire domain. So I would say, yes, let's do that. But we would just need to make sure that we look at all of those scenarios. And again, it's categories and tags. It's the individual posts. It's the authors, it's all of those things that you need to consider as you're moving from the subdomain over to the main domain. Okay, so this is a real world example as well, and I created these 301 redirects last week. So many of you have heard that at my Genesis theme store, I have sold to to 9 Seeds and John Brown, who is a good friend of mine, who I absolutely love. I know he will take good care of our customers, and he will really nurture that store like I want him to. Well, for me to be able to help facilitate that process and that migration and make it as easy on 9 Seeds as possible and as transparent on our customer base as possible, I have to create 301 redirects from my store over to 9 Seeds, right? But keep in mind, it's not just the store, it's elements outside of the store. So when you're looking at those 301 redirects, we have WooCommerce, the store page, we have individual products, we have product categories, product tags, we've got attributes of products, we have child pages that are associated to the store that are outside of Woo, like a store FAQ, purchase terms and conditions, customizations and things like that, that we need to reroute people for. There's a whole forum that exists in SimplePress. I have to reroute all of the forum and all of those individual posts too. So, as you're thinking through the 301s, don't simplify the overall magnitude of the project that you're doing, right? Think through all the various scenarios and all of those elements that really need to be transferred over. Okay, so what if we did a permalink change? And for those of you who don't know, I bought a farm. If God is willing, I will have alpacas on my farm because they're the coolest animals ever, and that's what these little guys are. So let's say that we've got crazyanimals.com originally, and we had categories within our URL structure, okay? I'm not a fan of that, and that's because if you start changing categories on your blog post, it automatically changes the URL for you, and you lose all of your SEO value and your traffic because no one ever remembers to create 301 redirects. So that's something I never encourage my clients to do because people are humans and we make mistakes and we forget things and we're busy, and the average user doesn't think on a daily basis to worry about 301 redirects. So it's not something that I recommend, but it was recommended a long time ago and a lot of people did it. So let's say that that was the case and we really wanted, it was cumbersome. We really wanted to remove it, and we wanted to just make sure that the blog posts were the blog posts. And this could apply whether it's categories or you've got dates in your URLs. You just need to do a 301 redirect to the full URL with the category over to the one without it. It's that simple. And guess what? This is so easy in Excel. If you were to dump all of your blog posts URLs into Excel from DynoMapper, you do a mass search and replace and get rid of all of the alpacas / and you could even do .com/alpaca/ as the replacement value, and then include .com in the new value just to protect it, to make sure that if that was in an actual post, URL, you didn't screw it up. And so, and you'll catch yourself doing it. And once you realize what you're doing, you're like, okay, I got to start over. I got to rethink my strategy, because trust me, I have done that. But that's as simple as it is to fix that structure that you had and make it easier for you on an ongoing basis. And because 99% of that SEO value is transferred, you're safe to do it. Okay, so the next example is, say, I don't like this bad hair days post at all, and I'm going to completely get rid of it, right? I'm really in love with chickens. I bought the alpacas and they ticked me off, and I don't want them on my farm anymore, so I don't want to blog about them. I want to blog about chickens, and I'm going to have chickens on my farm too. So I just want to get rid of that completely. It's going to go away, but I don't want to lose the traffic that's coming into it or the SEO value. I could send it over to a like post. Another like post would be about chickens' hairdos. They're both about bad hair days and they're kind of funny. And so it is legit for me to say, this guy's gone. We're just going to move any traffic coming into him over to here so it doesn't create a 404. Because again, nobody likes to have activity coming into a website and hit a dead end. They'd like them to find like content if that content's no longer available. Okay, so here is my real world example that I said from just this last month. I literally had a client who I absolutely love. They're just great people, who had about 1,500 blog posts at most, but had 1,700 tags. And the tags were like plural versus singular, spelled wrong. I mean, it just was unnecessary because this doesn't help people. You want people to find like content. You don't need ducks and duckies or duck all as tags. You just need one of them so that people can find other blog posts where you wrote about dogs or cats or ducks or llamas or alpacas. That is the purpose of a tag. You should not have a tag that has one post assigned to it or 3 posts assigned to it. It should be like 5 or 10 or 15 to make it worthy of being a tag. So that's a side subject, but it's a takeaway for you, because when you have all of these tags listed in your website and they only have one post listed, it's bad for usability and it's bad for SEO. So clean those up and don't do those. But when you clean them up, please make sure you do a 301 redirect. So when I get rid of all of this crap over here and I narrow down to like 20 categories, and probably, actually no, like I tell you 7 categories, and I think I did 20 tags to start with from 1,700. This is, you know, we just are doing a 301 redirect. That's it. And you do it again for each tag, for each category you clean up. Preserves traffic, preserves social activity, preserves SEO, keeping your website clean, keeping your visitors in the search engines healthy. So how can you manage 301 redirects? Because I mentioned the htaccess file earlier, and that may have freaked you out. Some hosting accounts have the ability to do it right within the account. WordPress has great plugins like redirection or Yoast, which allow you to do it. I've realized that some people attend these webinars who are not in WordPress, so I threw in Squarespace and Wix because both of them actually have an option for this. Squarespace calls it a URL shortcut, and then Wix has it underneath the site manager. So let's look at each one of those. So the htaccess file, in my early days of WordPress and owning an agency, I actually would go in there and work with these, and it really did freak me out. And I said that, you know, in case it freaks you out. It made me nervous. It freaked me out because I knew if I screwed this up, I could take down the entire website. It is very scary to non-programmers. For those of you who are programmers, this is really easy to do. You're just saying, it's a simple little row that says old page to new page, begin, end, and if there was like 200 redirects, you'd have 200 line items here that would repeat the same type of format. Super easy to do, clean, doesn't require a plugin. My suggestion when people ask me the best route to go is, if you are technical and the htaccess file does not freak you out, then by all means, go ahead and create the redirects right within the htaccess file, because you don't have to have an extra plugin. That just is something that has to be updated and maintained. It's, you know, it's lean, it's easy to do for you, and, you know, go forth and use that. Now, let's say you don't have a coding team, you're not a developer, you don't have easy access to developers, and you would prefer not to go pay somebody every time you need to update a 301 redirect, which is legit. So I'm going to give you other routes. You can go through a hosting account like WP Engine. Theirs is not scary at all. This image kind of looks scary now that I'm looking at it because they've got funky characters there, but it's just the exact same as it was. You would have your tag of duckies getting rerouted to duck or ducks. That simple. You're just going to drop in the source URL with the destination URL. What was the old guy? What is the new guy? And it's right within the admin panel of WP Engine. So it's really easy to do, and it's very intuitive. I mean, this, if you get rid of that info funkiness right there, this is not intimidating. I can do this, so you can do it. So if you're a WP Engine user, you know, feel free to kind of poke around in there, because you're not going to break anything if you do. And it's, you can fix quickly what you may have entered in that's bad. Another option that you have is a plugin for WordPress called Redirection. This is one I have used for many years. And the reason I use it is because A, it's easy for me to use. I can whip in a 301 redirect really quick. I can easily find ones I've already had and edit them. And I can load this for clients so that I load in all the ones that we put in for the migration for them or for the new design we created. And they have an easy way to modify that moving forward. And that's what it's about for me when we build websites for people. WordPress needs to be usable for them. I don't want to force end users to go into code. I want them to have an easy way to do it. And so in that case, it is best for us to create, or excuse me, to install a plugin for them to use that's intuitive. And I think the redirection plugin is super, super intuitive. And, you know, and there's other ones available too. This is just one that I've used for a long time. It can track how many hits come to it. You can turn that on or off. And it's got, you know, some other features. And for me, because I use Excel and I use DynoMapper to push my page URLs or my post URLs into Excel and then Excel up into the redirection plugin, I love this plugin because I can mass upload 1,700 301 redirects for those tags in an instant, and they're all there and they're all working. So it's a great tool for me and people like me. Okay, so Yoast has a great option as well. This is with the premium version of Yoast, and I bless their team for making this so easy on people. And it does prompt you, I believe, too, that if you start changing, you know, live URLs, it wants you, it's prompting you to create a redirect, which is wonderful. And, you know, this is just a great ad. So people always ask, you know, is the premium plugin of Yoast worth it for me? Well, this is in one case where yes, it is, because it helps protect you and your SEO. The plugin has your back, and this is a perfect example of how it has your back. But however you're doing your redirects, I want to caution you so that you don't create a redirect loop. And this was something that Yoast had in their documentation for this plugin, which was like, oh, I got to remember to mention that. So that's why I have that here. What is a redirection loop? It is simple. You're basically going in a circle. So page A, I've said, is gone. I'm going to X that out. I'm routing page A to page B. That happened in January. Well, then I decided, because I'm fickle, I'm not going to do page B anymore either. So that guy is gone. I'm going to route page B over to page C. And let's say this happened in May. I don't remember what happened in January because it's now May. I'm a busy mom. I barely remember what I made the kids for dinner last night, right? So I redirect B to C. Now it's November. I've decided we're not going to do C anymore, and I'm going to reroute page activity from, or excuse me, SEO value, and SEO value and traffic from C to A. What have I done? I've literally created a circle because A to B to C back to A, but A is getting redirected to B. And you will find websites and you'll get error messages of redirection loops or redirect loops. That's what they're talking about. Everything's just going in a circle and nothing can resolve. So that kills your SEO quickly, because what's going to happen? That's a bad user experience. If the search engines see that occurring, they're yanking all of those URLs out of the index, and you've lost all of your SEO value for everybody. This happens a lot with large websites and lots of cooks in the kitchen. Okay, so I mentioned that I was going to have just quick examples of the other CMS, some other popular CMSs. So Squarespace, they do offer this. You go to website management, you click on URL shortcodes, and then you can see it's not intimidating how you do it here either. This is pretty easy to do. It's just similar to the other software packages that we saw. You enter in the old and then the new, and you create that 301 redirect, and it passes all that value. Really easy, really nice. And then this is the Wix option for it. You have to have the premium plan. So if you're on the entry-level Wix, you don't have the option to do this. You actually have to pay for the premium. But again, old page, new page, save. It creates those 301s for you, nice and easy. And are you noticing a trend? WordPress is trying to make it easy for you with plugins. Hosting companies are trying to make it easy for you with their user interface panels. Even like Wix and Squarespace are allowing you to do it because everybody knows it's super important to your SEO, the health of your traffic, and the health of your website or your blog. So just a couple of important notes I want to go through. 301 redirects must be in place when the URL change occurs or immediately following. And by immediately following, I mean within hours, right? You cannot go back and add them a week later and expect the search engines to adhere your request and pass that page rank and that SEO value. It's not going to happen. They're much too efficient today. They're going to yank out that content from the index and your SEO value is gone. And if you've got a really high performing page or post, that's a disaster. So by the time your content, is already gone, everything's out of the index. And here's how you check that. So like if and I've had this happen, people are like, is it too late? Well, go look for that old URL in the Google search box. Put the URL in there. If Google comes back with nothing, that means it's already pulled it out of the index. If it comes back with that URL and it just hits and you click on it and it goes to a dead page, it is still in the index and it still has an opportunity to have some salvage done. So whip up that 301 redirect really fast. That's the easiest way to figure out if that's the case. The same thing would be with Bing. You can check it with Bing, the exact same process. But that's the only way you're going to truly know on whether or not you still can preserve the SEO that you have. But again, the important thing is to do it when you make the change. Okay, and Google said recently that, because the question came up, they're like, well, how long do I have to keep those 301 redirects in place? Is it a week? Is it 5 years? And they said, you know what, it's safe to leave them for a year, because by that time we've already transferred everything long ago, and most of the referral traffic you're going to be getting, is probably dying off because it only lasts for so long. So they're like, a year is good. You don't have to keep it for a year. You could probably do it for 6 months if there's not a lot of referral traffic in. If there's not much referral traffic at all, you could make it shorter. But if you've got a lot of referral traffic coming in and this had, 1,000 backlinks coming into that URL, don't remove it after a year. Google's not saying you have to remove it after a year. They're just saying it would probably be safe. If you have 1,000 backlinks coming into that URL, put up that 301 redirect and don't take it away unless you are changing the redirect to something else. Leave it there to preserve that traffic. So I didn't cover coding of this today because that's not where people get tripped up. The developers on this webinar can quickly figure that stuff out because there's a lot of information. I wanted to cover the reasons you do 301 redirects, the different scenarios, because that's where people trip up and they forget to use it and when to use it. So here's some great additional options that you can have for learning more about the 301 redirects. Some of them are code-based, some of them have videos, some of them are different scenarios too. And again, Nathan's got the link for this presentation. You can crop any of the slides and because it's on SlideShare and grab these links so you can learn more. Okay, Nathan, that is what I wanted to cover today. The 301 redirects isn't a complex topic. It's just something that people need to be aware of. And I think we've covered most of it in the presentation, but I am happy to take questions that have come up and popped up in people's heads. And if you have different scenarios, please feel free to whip those into the chat box and iThemes, and we can run through them because I made sure that we save time to talk through those, because there may have been scenarios I didn't think of to give you that exist and you'd all like to talk through.
All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca. Great information today, as always. It may be shocking to you, Rebecca, that we actually have a lot of questions stacked up here.
Okay, good.
So, folks, we did just add the URL for the slides in the chat room. So you can download those straight from SlideShare. So you'll find that link there in the chat room at ithemes.com/chat. I've been picking up questions throughout the webinar. I've got a queue of those built up, but if you did not get your question asked already in the chat room, please do so. Again, there at ithemes.com/chat. And if you preface that with the word question in all uppercase, that helps me to pick it out. Okay, so let's start out with a question that came in actually during the pre-show. Lorraine asked, should all or some 404 errors be redirected to 301s?
If the 404 errors are new and they're legit, yep, I'd put in 301 redirects for them, because you don't know if there's incoming traffic to those links that you need to protect.
Great answer. And the redirection plugin that Rebecca mentioned will also track 404 errors, and it gives you a really easy interface to convert those links into 301s.
Yep, and let's take a quick moment and just look at that. I have that up here in my actual website. And so here's an example, really easy. I put a redirect in for this link right here because the real one, which is this guy, way too long for you to try to look at and type in. So I just did a quick redirect and sent traffic from the short guy I gave you over to this long guy. Took me 2 seconds and it's had 3 hits. But as Nathan said, you can see 404s, you can see logs in redirection, you can set up groups to track why you modified those redirects. You can do imports. If you're using a Mac and you go to do an import, you need to make sure that you're not trying to import an Excel file itself. You got to save it to a CSV. And I found the Windows CSV is what works. And then you've got some additional options that you can throw in. So just a really good plugin. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, and just to something Rebecca said may have just blown right past some of you guys. Make sure when you save that CSV that it is in the Windows CSV format. There's a number of different types of CSV files that Excel or whatever spreadsheet app you're using will give you. The Windows CSV is the one that will import without any problems, and it can cause a problem if you don't use that. So just a quick note to hopefully avoid some pain that I've personally experienced. Okay, Girl Who Can't Type is asking, so if you redesign an entire site, do you have to do a 301 for every page, even though there are only minor changes?
If the text and the design are the only changes, but the URL stays the same, you do not need any 301 redirects. The only time you do a 301 redirect is if the URL changes. But here's a caveat to that. There are a lot of times where you do a redesign and you may have created a custom post type for something like testimonials or portfolios or industry focus or any, just various things. And when you do that, you have to make sure that wherever that old content was on the site, it's going to have a new URL structure because it's now part of a custom post type. You have to create 301 redirects for that. Right. I cannot get that phrase out. I said it so much over this last hour. I'm tripping on it every time I go to say it now. But yeah, so design changes, no, you're good. Content changes, no, you're good. Any changes to the URL structure or where you put the data, like a custom post type, you need to have a redirect in place.
Okay, so Luis asks, how long does it take Google to replace the old URLs to the new redirected URLs? And I might add to that, will there be a drop in traffic or ranking during that time?
Those are great questions. So based on my test with the Rebecca Gill page to the RebeccaGill.com domain, there was no drop in traffic, and it happened from Sunday till Tuesday. So that was 48 hours. Now I have an active site, right? There's always stuff changing on it because we've got the store and the forum and I blog and things like that. So Google does come back often. If you have a small site that only changes once a year and Google doesn't crawl it very often, right? It doesn't come back to visit often at all, then it's going to take longer for it to find this out. But what you can do is you can speed that process up because you can resubmit a sitemap to Google, which in Google Search Console, which invites them to come back.
Got it. Okay, here's a question from Martin. Could you talk just for a minute about the best practices for redirects when you're going from HTTP to HTTPS?
Good call, Martin. I don't know why I forgot to put that in the dang presentation. I totally should have put that in there. So yes, if you're going from a non-SSL site to having an SSL, which is HTTP to HTTPS, you do need redirects. Now, there's ways to manage that, and there's the canonical links. And I cannot get into the specifics of that because that is what my team handles for me. And I just tell them, here's a client that has to have it done. Go make that happen. And they do make it happen, and they do 2 different types of redirect activity. And gosh darn it, I should have put that in the slides because that's an important point, and I do apologize for that.
All right. So Mike asks, in that pink puppy to purple kitty scenario, what if there was a complete changeover and nothing on the old site was of any value or aligns to anything on the new site? What would you do?
I would not do the 301 redirects. And so this is a good, I should have put this slide in there. So say, here's an example. Say you've got a website and it was ranking pretty good. And then you hired a really crappy SEO consultant who bought a bunch of backlinks and basically put you into a manual penalty situation with Google, and you can't get yourself out. And you've decided you're going to create a new URL. Should you 301 redirect those bad URLs with all that bad juju over to the new ones that are fresh? I wouldn't. I'd start fresh. And guess what? This girl who's talking right now got herself in a manual penalty with Google about 12, 13 years ago. And we did not redirect anything. We started fresh. Even though Google did take it away and brought us back, we didn't rank the same. And we just started with a brand new URL, everything to the letter. And that was a great learning lesson for me. So, you know, that's a situation where I wouldn't encourage you to use the 301 because you don't want to just transfer all that negative SEO value and that black hat tactics that have been put in place over to the fresh, clean site.
Great information. And there was just a comment in the chat room about iTheme security changing HTTP to HTTPS if it forces the entire site to HTTPS. And yes, iTheme security does do that, and it does provide a 301 redirect to that. You know, when somebody requests a page on HTTP and your site hands it back as HTTPS, it does provide a 301 redirect. But you still need to go into Google Search Console, right, Rebecca, and set up the new HTTPS site and link those two together.
Yeah, so after you do a conversion from regular old P to the big PS, you need to go into Google Analytics. You don't create a new instance of Google Analytics. It actually allows you to go right in and just into the settings. You can say, oh no, we're no longer just P, we're a PS now, which is fine. That's really quick. For Google Search Console, you actually have to go in and add in a new instance for the HTTPS. And then the good thing is Google moves all of the history and the activity just right on over. It quickly flows over. So it'll taper down the old one and then ramp up the new one.
Super. And by the way, for those of you who have questions about converting from HTTP to HTTPS, in just about a month, I'll be doing a 3-hour training on that whole process. So watch your iThemes news, and we'll have that whole afternoon training coming up for you. Scott Sutherland asks if you get rid of a post, like alpacas / bad hair days, but you don't have a similar post like chicken hairdos to redirect to, what should you do with the redirect? Go to the homepage, or where should it go?
Oh my gosh, I love that you guys are using those crazy URLs. So funny. So in that case, what I would do is I would, you know, if I did take down some old posts that were just crappy. Like when I started the business 7 years ago, I think it was, I wrote some blog posts. And when I look back at them now, I was like, oh, I was an idiot. Those are horrible. Like, you know, it wasn't my voice. The content's old. It's outdated. I didn't really talk about anything. I just regurgitated what I was hearing around me. I didn't want them. Right. And I didn't want to redirect them to anything else because they didn't have value. There wasn't links coming into them. They surely weren't ranking because they were a pile of poo. So I just sent those to the main blog post, right? So in an event that someone ever did link over to them, which I doubted, I didn't want them to go to a 404. So I just got rid of them and I moved them over to the main blog. So, you know, it brought there because there wasn't anything like it on the site. By the way, Nathan, while you're looking for other questions, a note on the webinar that's coming up, in case you are all not familiar with this news, as of October, if a site is not HTTPS, Google is going to start giving warnings on that in Chrome to searchers. So you need to be hard pressed to get that in. And sign up for a webinar if you don't know how to do that, because that is looming quickly and it's coming. Google may have pushed off mobile first until 2018, but that whole need for an SSL with your site is immediate and it's coming soon.
Absolutely, and that's actually the catalyst for us rescheduling that HTTPS webinar for about 3.5 weeks from now. And if you're not, you probably are already on the iThemes mailing list if you're in this webinar, but if you're not, down in the footer of this chat room page, there's a little subscribe box, and type in there and we'll get you the information about that upcoming HTTPS webinar. Still got a bunch more questions here. Girl Who Can't Type asks, let's say you've used the redirection plugin and you want to instead use the htaccess file or your hosting account. Is that a good idea to do? I guess let me rephrase the question to say this. Is there a reason to use the htaccess file rather than the plugin?
Sure. You're a developer, you already know how to use the htaccess file, and you don't like a lot of plugins on your site. And so whack redirection because you don't need it. Export those existing redirects, which you can, and then you can drop those in. Again, you can drop them into Excel. You can add in the new verbiage that you need for the htaccess file by doing merges of columns, and then you can plop that in right into the htaccess file. So yeah, as long as you have your htaccess file ready when the redirection plugin gets pulled from the site, you're perfectly fine.
Great. Sue asks, is a wildcard redirect sufficient? Why does she need to redirect every page if the only thing that is changing is the domain name part?
If the wildcard makes it clear that all the individual URLs are moving over to these new individual URLs, I think that's acceptable. That would be a question I would defer to my coding staff, though, because that's something I have not actually personally worked with. But I suspect they've done that many times, particularly with the non-SSL over to the SSL.
Yeah, and just to clarify with the comments in the chat room, the Google warning that is going to happen in October is for sites that have any sort of user-submitted data, like a contact form or a login form, something like that. That's when the not secure warning will start to pop up in Chrome. Which,
seriously, how many sites don't have that?
Exactly.
I mean, everybody's got a contact form, or most everybody's got a contact form or blog comments, something where your people are submitting information on.
Absolutely. All right. So Eva, a couple questions here. Here's a good one. Would you redirect for image names?
If your images are in the Google index, and it would be the image file names, right? The URL where they're stored. If those are in the index and you're pushing them through your XML sitemap to the search engines and you want to show up in Google Images, absolutely, I would redirect those as well. That's a great question.
That really was. Here's another good one from Eva. How about landing pages that you don't need anymore? Or admin actually clarifies with this. What if you use a landing page like special deals 4 times a year? You display it, you hide it, you display it again. Would you redirect that somewhere else? What would you say to that?
If it goes away, right, I would redirect it because you've probably got links coming in, so I want that traffic to go somewhere. Here's a scenario. I have a client who does webinars and they repeat the same webinars over and over and again, right? And what they did is, and we caught this with some technical SEO reports, is they created like 20 webinars on the same topic over a 3-year period. They were all out there and they were all duplicate content. Well, we know what the search engines think about that duplicate content. They don't like it, right? And the only really difference between the landing pages was the timing of the webinars. So you could 301 redirect all of those old webinars up to the new one, the fresh one, which would pass any old traffic and keep pushing that good SEO juju forward to the most current event.
Excellent. So folks, I'm down to my last couple of questions here. If you have questions that have not gotten answered, please drop those in the chat room. Deb is asking, she says she has a client who's splitting their site into different regions, and she did redirects from the southern site to the northern site for the different portfolio posts. Will there be any penalty for the northern site, kind of being the newer site, but still getting the redirects to it?
So southern went away and those got redirected to northern, and will northern get binged for that? Is that the question?
It looks like, so the southern site, I'm assuming, is like the original site, and the northern site was sort of pulled out of that, I think. So redirects into, yeah, so Deb is saying the southern site is the original, and so they're redirecting the part that applies to the northern site out of the southern site up to the northern site.
Gotcha. No penalty whatsoever, because think about it this way. You are helping your visitors, right? If you have people looking for northern specific content, having those redirects in place, rerouting that traffic, rerouting that SEO value is all good, right? It's helping the user experience. That way you know it's good for the SEO.
Excellent. And this is my last question, folks. So last call for questions. Again, drop those in the chat room at ithemes.com/chat. And 2 more questions just came in. Okay, excellent. So Luis asks, when redirecting URLs, should you redirect both the www and the non-www version?
It depends on what CMS you're in. So in WordPress, we have canonical links. Canonical links will push www over to non-www or vice versa, right? That's already in place. And because that's in place, you do not need to do 301 redirects for both instances. In WordPress, you just do one, right? Whatever you're using. Now, if you're on other platforms that don't have that in place, then you've got a problem, and it's much bigger than your 301s.
Gotcha. And Luis clarifies, if he's just using htaccess, will there be a need for, does that affect anything?
I'm not sure what that question is, though.
Yeah, Luis, if you could clarify a bit there, we'll try to get that answered for you. Martin is asking, could you talk a bit more about the website redesign situation? Is there anything we need to know about other than just redirecting every post page category if there's a change? Is there any SEO loss that we should expect?
No, but here's one thing I want to do, because this is a pet peeve of mine that I really see a lot of people make mistakes on. If you have not seen this blog post about redesigns and the checklist that I have available for you, you need to go get it, right? This talks about all the different things to consider when you're doing a redesign, either yourself or you're doing it with clients. You can see that 301 redirects is something that I call out there, but there's other things as well. I would encourage you to go download this PDF, which is a checklist, so that you can just have it ready every time that you go to do a redesign, because it will help protect your SEO, because there's lots more than just that. And it's right on the website. It was a blog post I did. It's on my Web Savvy site, and it was a blog post I did in May 23rd, which is actually my grandma's birthday.
All right, so that link is now in the chat room, folks. Okay, Luis has clarified. Would you have to add the www and the non-www redirects in the htaccess file, or would just a www automatically redirect to non-www? And Lewis, I'm assuming you're in WordPress.
Yeah, I would defer to those links that I have on this slide right here, because they go into more of the technical nature. I don't know the answer to that question because I'm not a programmer.
And honestly, try it, and if it doesn't work, then you need the other one.
Yeah, there is. Thank you, Nathan. That is a much better answer than I just gave you, and it's very logical, right? If you put one in through the htaccess file and then the redirect works on both, you're fine. You don't need both. And I would think that you only have to do one. But yes, a very valid point.
Okay, last question. Admin asks, he says they're going to have a new WordPress website with a new URL structure. So do I understand correctly that we should set up all the 301s in the redirection plugin in the new site before we change DNS and point the domain to the new website? So do the redirects need to be in place when the site goes live?
Read that through again for me.
Okay. So launching a new website, new URL structure, should the redirection plugin with all the 301 redirects that are picking up the old website URL structure, that all should be in place when the new website is launched?
Yes. And what I'm assuming is your new website is seen in staging or on a dev site, right? Probably getting ready, and you've got the old site live. When you go to transfer staging to the live URL or the development site to the live URL, already have those redirects in place in redirection so that when it gets pushed over or you update that DNS, they'll hit and they'll be active that exact same moment. That's what we do at Web Savvy when we do a redesign or a relaunch for somebody.
Perfect. Well, look at that. It is straight up 2 o'clock Central Time, and we have exhausted all the questions. How about that? Rebecca,
Perfect.
Thanks for an hour of excellent information on 301 redirects. Thank you all for being with us. Rebecca, any last words before we close off today?
I think next month we have schema. Am I correct with that?
Yes, that is correct.
So next month we have schema. I've got a mastermind that's kicking off in October that has a couple of seats left. And Nathan and I are planning some stuff for the end of this year and the beginning of next year, and we'll be pushing out that soon. So stay tuned.
Yeah, a lot of really cool stuff about to roll out for Rebecca's training here on iThemes Training. If this is your first Rebecca Gill webinar, I know you have enjoyed it. And I would encourage you to head over to training.ithemes.com and look at all the free webinars we have, not just SEO training, but training on all kinds of information. And just about everything we do is free and open to the public. So head over there and look and see if any webinars catch your interest. And we would love to have you join us on future iThemes training webinars. Also want to show you over in the sidebar beside the chat room is some replays of an SEO summit that we did earlier this year. And you can get access to that right now for $97. So give that a look. Click the link and see what all you can get there. Some really great information from Rebecca as well. So thanks again for investing the last hour with us here at iThemes Training. I've certainly enjoyed it. I've learned some things. Rebecca, thank you again, and hope you all have a great rest of the week. We'll see you next time here on iThemes Training.